Starmer is not correct to say Brexit was used to liberalise immigration. The European Union was certainly used for such a thing. Its free movement allowed workers to transcend visa restrictions, meaning a ready supply of unskilled labour for the corporations. When that source got cut off in the UK, and it was politically untenable to continue free movement, the Tories had to find one elsewhere. Thus they upped cheap labour from outside the EU, which already made up around half of our immigration. That's not really using Brexit, it's simply being wedded to cheap workers and finding another source for them when Brexit interferes. Labour would have done the same thing were it in government after 2020. Using Brexit would imply that the Tory levers were always set on upping levels from outside the EU. There was certainly a contingent that were in favour of this, but generally speaking, such Tories wanted a balance, with more opportunities for the Commonwealth and Anglosphere to come here. There were difficulties in doing so, while the EU was receiving preference. Some certainly may have had particular links to and been lobbying for countries like India, which is always pressing for more visas. However, I don't think this contingent was enough to be decisive. The result, of course, is the same, a country rapidly spiralling into something resembling the Third World. If we're saying Brexit was used, then so was COVID and the economic damage that followed it. In a recent interview, Boris Johnson admitted he upped immigration after COVID in order to stop inflation from June 2021 to June 2022. Presumably Sunak carried this on in the following record-breaking year. The logic here is that fewer cheap workers would mean companies paying higher wages and thus less investment by business, with the costs passed on to the consumer. Indeed, there had been slow immigration in 2020, only 35,000 from January to December, and doubtless the government thought the country was due a larger amount in the next few years to balance things out. Curiously enough, Starmer doesn't mention the COVID factor because he too is implicated in locking down the country, and again, Brexit and the Tories are his targets.